We are now joined by Ophir Falk. He is a foreign policy advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Mr. Falk is joining us from Tel Aviv. Mr. Falk, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, sir. Talk to me about how you all are feeling about this third day into the truce and the exchange of the hostages and the prisoners.
Right, so this is the third day of a pause for humanitarian purposes in this war, the war in Gaza. I'd like to remind you that on October 7th, the Hamas, which is a genocidal terrorist organization, waged war on Israel. It attacked Israel, murdering over 1,000 Israelis, men, women, children, beheading children, burning babies alive, raping women, murdering women in front of their families. And now the IDF is destroying Hamas. Actually, we have two war missions now. It's to destroy Hamas and to free our hostages. Thankfully today, yesterday, and the day before yesterday, we had a number of hostages released. And we hope all our hostages, 240 in number, will be released. Anybody, any country, any person who is candidly, genuinely concerned about human lives should demand the immediate and unconditional release of these hostages. You should demand that 24/7. And we're working on that 24/7.
Mr. Falk, we're hearing reports that the Israelis that have been released today by Hamas and other militants actually got through from northern Gaza directly into Israel. Can you shed some light on that?
I actually can't provide details in any of the negotiations or the exchanges. What I can say is that Hamas are not militants, but they are rather terrorists. People who behead children and burn babies alive are not militants, they are terrorists. And it's important that your viewers understand that.
Let me ask you about something else that you corrected earlier, because I said that we're on the third day of a truce and you said it's the third day of the pause. Why is that distinction so important, sir?
That's the language of the agreement. It's a pause for humanitarian purposes. That's the accurate language. And once this pause is pause in the war is completed, we will continue to destroy Hamas.
President Joe Biden spoke. Sorry,
just a second. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not only for our own good. Obviously, we're fighting for the good of Israel right now. But it's a war of civilization against Hamas savages. We're on the front line right now. But if we do not prevail, if we, God forbid, do not destroy Hamas, the West is next. Europe, the United States, Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Calgary, all these places could be next if we don't prevail in this war.
So let's extend the conversation out further to the West, where U.S. President Joe Biden has said earlier today that he hopes that this pause does get extended. What is the likelihood, in your estimation, by what you're seeing take place, that could happen?
Right, definitely. We thank the President of the United States for personally getting involved in structuring this thing and helping hostages being released. We thank President Biden. We thank the United States, the United Kingdom, the people of Canada, the bipartisan support we are receiving in the United States and throughout our allies. And we thank the President for that. We actually would welcome an extension of the pause to get at least 10 hostages released on a daily basis.
What do you think the likelihood is of that happening? Considering that it was supposed to start on Thursday, got delayed till Friday. Yesterday, we were all here hoping that, in fact, the exchange would take place. We didn't know for sure if it was going to. And then shortly before midnight, I believe, things started moving again. So what is it looking like in the days ahead?
Well, we'll take it one day at a time. We'll see what happens. Clearly, the main reason for any release of hostages is because of the IDF pressure on this Hamas terrorist organization. They understand only pressure, and we're thankful that the IDF was able to get into Gaza. And few believed that that the IDF would go into Gaza after October 7th. We went into Gaza. Few our best allies. Few of them believed that we would be able to go into these terror tunnels after the terrorists. That's exactly what the IDF did. It ran over ran down these terror tunnels, killing thousands of Hamas terrorists. Few believed that we would go into the command and control centers that the Hamas held in hospitals. That's exactly what we did. We exposed these war crimes that the Hamas conducts in Gaza as they hide behind their own civilians, using them as human shields. We expose that truth. And I'm glad that CBC is certainly showing that to their viewers, to your viewers. And we're going to continue to prosecute this war until we destroy Hamas and free our hostages.
Mr. Falk, as you're speaking, we're showing images of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, meeting with some of the troops in Gaza. And your area of specialty, or your area of advising the Prime Minister, is around foreign policy. So I wonder, when so many of your international partners, or more and more of your international partners, are saying maybe it's time for a ceasefire, maybe the collateral damage of civilians and innocent Gazans is not worth what we are seeing on the ground at this point. How do you advise the Prime Minister? What is your sense of the amount of loss of life we've seen in the past 7-8 weeks?
Right. So first of all, the Prime Minister and all of Israel see the loss of civilian lives as a tragedy. All civilian lives lost are on the hands of Hamas. Israel seeks to minimize civilian casualties. We do everything possible to minimize civilian casualties, and Hamas seeks to maximize civilian casualties. Israeli civilians and Palestinian civilians, they hide behind their civilians, behind and below ground. They say that the tunnels, their leaders say the tunnels are for the Hamas terrorists, but over ground, that's for the civilians, and Israel has to take care of the civilians, Israel and the UN. So we're exposing that. It's part of their strategies to have civilian casualties. It's part of the Hamas strategy to have civilian casualties, and Israel's trying to minimize that. Clearly, every civilian casualty is a tragedy, and it's all on Hamas's hands.
I hear what you're saying, Mr. Falk, but then we are seeing images of the Palestinians, the detainees who are released, and many of them are thanking Hamas. They're saying, Hamas brought us freedom. Hamas is the only one that cared about us, and now we're back home with our loved ones in the West Bank. So I wonder, what is going to happen when this war ends, where there seemingly seems to be growing momentum for Hamas in the West Bank, and there's quite a bit of concern in the region about the degree of destruction we have seen in Gaza? What happens the day after?
Right. So first of all, we got to be accurate. It's not detainees; that they're terrorists, prisoners that were in Israeli prisons that were released. They're not just detainees, and these are people that tried to murder people. Right. Those are the people that were released. And you're asking what will be the day after Hamas? Well, the day after Hamas will have two elements. After destroying Hamas, we will need to demilitarize Gaza so that there will be absolutely no threat on Israel in that 360 square kilometers to the south of Israel. There cannot be any military presence. Any militarization has to be demilitarized in Gaza. After that, or at the same time, we'll need to de-radicalize Gaza in such a manner that the school children in Gaza will not be taught to cherish death, will not say America is the great Satan. And by the way, they consider Canada also a great Satan, and Israel the small Satan, and the kids will not be taught to murder Jews, and that's like the pinnacle of their existence. No, they need to be taught to love life like we are taught in our schools, or how our children are taught, how I was taught in Canada, actually, to love life for prosperity and for peace, and not to kill and murder people. And once that happens, once de-radicalization happens, we can rebuild, the international community can rebuild Gaza with a hope for peace.